Hey guys, what's happening? So with us getting back into Ultimate Spider-Man, we get our introduction to the new Black Cat, in addition to someone else figuring out Peter's secret identity. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so with us coming back, this brings us into the month of November, where we find Peter reaching out to Harry, who was supposed to meet him 2 hours ago for a stakeout, only for Harry to be a no-show. So Peter tries to call Harry to see what's going on, but he doesn't answer, so Peter leaves a message. And right after that, Peter's like, I'm definitely gonna dial *67 so this weirdo doesn't have my number. And the next thing you hear after that is, hello, this is Otto Octavius, who's calling? And it's like, not only is that hilarious, but man, I remember *67, *69. There used to be a ton of different codes back in the day that you could dial to either block your number or get information on the last person who called. You know, most of the stuff that just comes with phones now, like three-way calling. But yeah, when he said that, it just took me back. But right here where Peter calls Otto, he asks him if he's seen Harry. So of course Otto's just like, I'm not his keeper. So Peter's like, oh. So he fills him in on how Harry is supposed to meet up with him 2 hours ago, but he hasn't heard anything from him. So he asks Otto if Harry's suit's still in the lab, and Otto tells him no. So then he asks Otto if he could track it for him, so he could at least figure out where Harry is and if he's okay. And at first Otto's like, I'm busy right now, but he then realizes that Spider-Man's not gonna leave him alone until he actually does it. So next, Otto pulls up the information on Harry's suit, and as soon as he does, he's like, oh, that's odd. You're gonna wanna see this, only for Peter to cut him off right there like, oh, actually I gotta run. Something's going on here, so I'll call you back later, or you can call me. And as soon as Peter hangs up, Otto's like, wait, I don't have your number. And it's just like, ladies and gentlemen, that's how it's done. Because later on, if Otto brings it up that he couldn't see the number, Peter can just be like, oh, that's crazy. But just after this, we find out the reason why Peter hung up is because he's got action down below, which as it turns out is a bank robbery that's being committed by Mr. Negative's gang, the Demons, who, as we know, in the case of Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, he's a member of Wilson Fisk's Sinister Six, and that's something that's going to play a role in this as we move forward. But after dropping in, Spider-Man starts letting off his quips and dropping his jokes here and there as you would expect, and he tells this group of demons to put the weapons down and let these people go, so they can all walk away nice and easy, or this could go the other way. And this one lady's just like, why don't you shut up? You're gonna get everyone killed. So Spider-Man's like, okay, fine, you can keep her, but everyone else goes free. What's it gonna be? So of course the demons opened fire, but I gotta admit, the offer, it was pretty fair. But Spider-Man just ends up handling these guys pretty quickly, in what he notices to be rather easily. And it has him saying either these guys are terrible at fighting, or he's just getting way better at this. But in this commotion, the same lady, she ends up getting grabbed at gunpoint. And I gotta say, in a moment like this, her next words may very well be her last. And with those words, she decides to say, see you idiot? I told you this was gonna happen. And I mean, of course, Peter still saves her, even though it's tempting not to, but he admits that would totally go against his save everyone no matter what ethos. But I appreciate when he does. Not only does he web the demon's gun to his face, but he also puts a web over this lady's mouth to save everyone else from hearing her speak again. But just after this, Peter's met by the arrival of Martin Lee. So of course, Peter makes a comment about the man bun, but it nearly took me out when he said, people are gonna love you in jail. And I'm telling you, man, it's something about the quips of this Spider-Man that really work for me. I love it. Because right here, Martin Lee's like, you think you're the man that put me there? And Spider-Man's just like, you think I'm not? It's like, talk that talk, Spidey. But then it's here where Mr. Negative brings up that he's well aware of what Spider-Man's capable of. And he tells him, it's hard to forget what you and your companion did to my colleague, Black Cat, a few weeks ago. Hard to forget. Impossible to forgive. Which right there is just referring to what we saw back in issue 9, when Harry shot Black Cat, Walter Hardy, off the rooftop, nearly killing him. Which from Peter's perspective, this was very much an accident, but as we know, Harry was definitely going for the kill. So next, Mr. Negative asks, where's your green friend today? So Spider-Man tells him, I'm flying solo on this one, which is really him just letting Lee know that he ain't got no help. So right here, Lee tells him, it's a tough life being alone. Me, I never am. I don't allow it. Which right there is just his introduction, just before he shows Spider-Man what he's capable of. Because next, Lee uses his corruption to get everyone in this bank to go after Spider-Man, which at first has Peter thinking this is the actual civilians coming after him, only for Lee to let him know that they're under his influence, which from here allows Lee to just walk right out of the front door. But eventually Peter's able to get through the crowd and get away, and in the process he gets roughed up quite a bit, with his new suit looking like some of y'all's underwear right now. But just as a reminder, this isn't the Picotech suit, cause like we saw back in issue 9, when Peter turned down the spider armor that Otto had made for him. After that, Otto came up with a simpler solution that looked just like the suit he already had, made out of a spandex Kevlar composite, which as a result can be torn and ripped. But at this time, with Peter making his way home, he just falls out on the floor, only to look over and realize that MJ's on the couch waiting on him. And it makes for a bit of a funny moment here, cause right away Peter's like, please tell me the kids aren't here. So MJ tells him, you're in luck. They both had something after school. So Peter's like, thank God, cause he didn't want them to see how he looks and freak out. So MJ's like, yeah, maybe worry about me right now. So Peter's like, right, well to start off, you look amazing today. So she gives him the bedroom eyes and she's like, thank you. But MJ's waiting here cause for starters, there's something she wants to talk about. And after they have that talk, there's something she wants to do. But before they get to that, Peter explains his appearance because he tells her this all came from a moral decision. He could have avoided it, but innocent people might have gotten hurt, so he took the beating. And this just goes right into what MJ wanted to talk about, because eventually she gives him this look that lets Peter know that she's about to say something that he should pay close attention to. And that's when she tells him, yeah, so I think I've been pretty cool about you becoming the new you. Like, I think I've taken the threat of violence and an overall looming sense of danger in stride. And Peter agrees that she has, and she goes on to say, so what should I do if, say, I'm starting to freak out a little bit? So of course Peter asks if it's because the way he's looking right now. So she tells him sure, and the thousands of photos and hours of video you take for the paper. Peter, I don't think it's ever come up before, but have you ever even gotten into a fight before all this? So he's like, sure, Flash Thompson, 8th grade. And MJ's like, how'd that go? And Peter's like, he beat the blank out of me, it was terrifying. And this just leads to MJ asking Peter how he's dealing with it now. So at first he says he hates it, but it feels good to him to be able to stop someone that only someone like him can stop. But he doesn't want to hurt anybody. He doesn't want anybody to get hurt. And it has MJ like, it's probably why you're perfect for this. And this causes MJ to ask Peter, do you promise to tell me when I should get scared? So he tells her, baby, if I ever come home and tell you it's time to run, be ready to run. But until then, please don't worry. I'm supposed to be doing this. Which, as we know, Peter's referring to the message he got from Tony Stark that essentially told him how his power in this completely different life had just been taken from him. So by becoming Spider-Man now, this is Peter taking that back. But at the same time, with him saying, don't worry, I'm supposed to be doing this, as a sort of a blanket statement, that doesn't guarantee the safety of himself or the people he cares about. That in itself is not a guarantee that everything will be okay. And I feel like Peter knows that to an extent, so it's like this idea of him doing what he's supposed to be doing. It's the only thing that's keeping him from not losing his mind and worrying about his family around the clock. Because he also believes if something does happen, he now has the strength to do something about it. Which is really just Peter using his own logic to support his belief system. And so after having this talk, MJ goes to the next thing, because she asks him, you want to fool around? But Peter can't stay right now, with it being the 1-year anniversary of Aunt May passing. And really he just came home to get changed and go meet Ben. So that's where he ends up going from here. But MJ ends up asking for a rain check, and Peter's like, definitely. And just after this, for a moment, we head over to the Sinister Six, where we find Mr. Negative filling in Wilson Fisk on his recent Spider-Man encounter, and Fisk is a bit upset, because from what it sounds like, he just let Spider-Man go. But Mr. Negative, he sees it as more of a stalemate. And for a minute here, Mole Man's like, what about his mind and your formidable feats of persuasion, Mr. Negative? Did you fear that battle as well? And Lee responds just saying, I can judge Will at a glance, Mole Man. As one measures determination, the spider would do well in comparison to everyone in this room. So it's not a thing of him being afraid, as it was him stepping away from a stalemate. But Kraven's more or less like, so what? Because he doesn't care how capable Spider-Man is. He's just like, you see this man, you must kill him. Do it in whatever manner you wish, but he must die, for we have been reduced to 5 from 6. And it's right then where he hears a voice say, no, I have not surrendered my seat, Kraven. And it's Walter Hardy, who's still alive and who's still alive. And it's kind of messed up because Mysterio's looking at him like, you know, maybe not yet. But Walter's like, not ever. The territory will remain in Hardy hands. Yes, I have new limitations, but when needed, my daughter Felicia will stand in my place. What's mine is mine. But when Wilson Fisk hears this, he doesn't like the idea of any of these guys believing that they own any borough or any territory, because he believes it all belongs to him. And like he said before, this is his city and it's got a rat problem. But at this point, the rats are biting at his feet. So Fisk tells them to stop any distractions, agendas, or plans that they might currently have, because he won't be pleased until there are bodies laid out before him. And following this, the next thing we do is head over to Memorial Park with Peter and Ben. And as Peter's getting there, he receives a text from Harry, who's like, hey, sorry about earlier, but he can't talk about the details over the phone. So when Peter lets Harry know that he's at Memorial Park, Harry just lets him know that he'll meet him there. And there's a moment here when Peter lays down the flowers for Aunt May, where he tells Ben, I can't believe it's been a year already. And I gotta say, when he said that, I was like, man, me neither. Because a lot of what we've been following in the Ultimates universe has been happening in real time. It's crazy. But for Ben, he tells Peter that he can believe it's been that long. Because he tells him, I get up every morning, I have my coffee, then I ask myself if today's the day I start going through her things and see what's what. But I can't bring myself to do it. I'm still waiting for her to walk through the door. So with hearing this, Peter lets Ben know that he misses her too, and that he believes Aunt May would absolutely love what he's doing. So in response, Ben tells Peter, she'd love what you're doing too. So at first, Peter's like, yeah, she always did like my photos, only for Ben to tell him that's not what he's talking about. Because Ben knows that Peter is Spider-Man. And he tells Peter it took him about a week after he figured out who Harry was, which makes sense, because he's closer to Peter and there's more clues there to fill in the gaps. But for a moment here where Peter starts to explain and let Ben know how he had been meaning to tell him, Ben stops him right there and he's like, no, don't say it, and don't ever say it out loud to anyone again. Which right there just naturally leads to the next question, which is Ben asking how many people know. So Peter tells him 6. You make 7 unless Jonah knows. But when it comes to Jonah, Ben's like, no, not yet. But he's just as good at this as I am. He'll get there eventually. And Ben goes on to tell him it's hard to keep a secret, especially when it's such an important one. But keeping it could save your life. Your lives. You have to try harder, Peter. Make some changes. And this just makes Peter think of the conversation him and MJ had earlier. So he tells Ben, MJ asked me if she should be scared earlier. And he goes on to say what he told MJ at the time, which was that he'd let her know when she should be. And it's right here where Ben drops some wisdom on Peter. Because he asked Peter, and you think you'd know when that is, before the wave crashes over your head? And Peter tells him, I think so. I believe so. I do know that I'm strong enough to do something about it if I had to. Which again is just kind of part of that belief system that Peter has that we talked about earlier, with Peter knowing that this is what he's supposed to be doing and more or less hoping that everything else will fall in line with that. And what he's telling Ben now is just Peter supporting that idea with his own logic. Because Peter's thinking like, yeah, well, I'm Spider-Man. If something happens, I'm strong enough to do something about it. But what Ben's trying to get Peter to realize here is that he may not have that opportunity. So next Peter asks Ben, why are you doing it? Which in this case refers to the risk that Ben's taking alongside with Jonah at the paper, where recently they called out Wilson Fisk under the pseudonym of Ben Riley. And I mean, a few of you guys were in the comment section when we covered that talking about, well, yeah, that's not going to end well. But with Peter asking Ben, why are you doing it? Ben tells him because they're evil and someone has to stand up to that. But in the middle of this talk, Peter gets another text from Harry, letting him know that he's there in the black SUV. So Peter lets Ben know that he's going to go and talk to Harry for a moment. But before Peter leaves, Ben asks him another question, because he says here, I'm old. Well, old enough. I lived a good life, and I've lived long enough to see the woman I loved be buried and gone. I do miss her, but it was a good life, and I'm fine with whatever happens next. Can you say that? And it takes a few for Peter to respond, but he tells Ben no. And I would imagine that Peter's not even close to that, because he's still at a point where he wants to see his kids grow up and become adults to get the opportunity to grow old with MJ, play with their grandchildren. So yeah, Peter is far from being where Ben is right now. And it just goes to show, even though they're both taking these huge risks, it's a very different situation for Ben than it is for Peter. So right here, he just tells Peter to keep that in mind. So going forward with Ben sharing this wisdom, it gives Peter something to think about. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.